Welcome to the NFBC Minute Live. And now, here's your host, Pastor Tom Broderick.
Hi, everybody. How are you today? Good to have you. I think it's been a little bit of a while since we had an NFBC Minute, so kind of bring you up to date. But glad you're having a good time. I just pray that you're surviving this Corona-19 virus situation. Every day doesn't seem like it's getting any better, and now we got the flu season going, so now we got people with flu, just complicating the whole situation. But just, we've been talking in Hebrews about faith and how we got to trust the Lord in these days, and so I just wanted to zero in and focus in on what we're going to be talking about this Sunday. We're actually in chapter 13 of Hebrews. It's amazing. We're in the last chapter. We've been going through quite a few months in the book of Hebrews, and now we're down to the last. In fact, tomorrow and next week will be our last two sermons on chapter 13. But what's interesting about chapter 13, it's very applicable to the day and age we're living in. Actually, all the way up all the way through 1 through 12, you know the book of Hebrews is a very heavy theological book. It deals with some very heavy issues, but predominantly it's dealing with the very simple issue but profound, is that Jesus Christ is superior to everything. The law of Moses, greater than angels, greater than the sacrifices are complete in him. He is a priest after the order of Melchizedek, and on it goes. But the main thing, the background of the book is this is a book that was written to Jewish Christians, a church that were predominantly made up of Jewish Hebrew Christians, and so many of them were sitting on the fence as far as whether they truly accepted and believed that Jesus Christ was their Messiah. So the book of Hebrews was a defense and also trying to tell people that Christ is the completion and fulfillment of the old covenant with a new covenant. He is greater than all the sacrifices. He's the once-for-all sacrifice for sins. And he's trying to get people to get off the fence and make a final commitment to trust in the Lord Jesus Christ and his once-for-all sacrifice for their sins. But when we come to chapter 13, as he's going to end the book, as many of the epistles do, we go from a doctrinal to a practical side. So chapter 13 is a practical ending of the book to try to help people to get this into their lives, to apply it to their situation. And these people in this church were being persecuted. They were being persecuted by their own Christian families because they accepted Jesus as the Messiah. They were persecuted by also by the pagans, the Romans. And so there was persecution and there was loss, and some lost even their own homes and had to be scattered and leave the area they were. So they were in the middle of a national crisis and a kind of a cultural pressure on them to be messianic believers. And so my big point and the main thrust of this sermon last Sunday, and it continues on for the next 2 weeks, is this. I asked a question the title of the sermon is, hey, how much of your love is showing? And that's what the writer of Hebrews is trying to do, is does your Christianity show in the middle of your crisis you're going through? In the middle of the pressures you're undergoing right now? Does Christ still shine forth in your life? And the way that Christ shines forth in our life today, even and then, is by our love one for another, and our love to the unbelievers. And so the big idea is this: in the midst of spiritual crisis and cultural pressure, it can become very easy to neglect social obligations and personal development of the Christian life. And in this chapter, there are a series of commands. There's at least 10 imperative commands to bring to the readers back to the basics of love. And we began that last week. So in other words, just let's bring it to our crisis, our cultural pressure. COVID-19, all the restrictions. You're not allowed to have this many people here. You're not allowed to have this many people in church. You're not allowed to go to a restaurant. There has to be social distancing, and on and go. I just heard that the governor of California has now put requirements for Thanksgiving gatherings of families.
Isn't that incredible?
Incredible.
I'm still here, by the way, everybody.
Oh.
Hello.
How you doing?
It's just new format, a new way, but I'm still here. But that is, isn't there a thing where he actually wants you to put masks on between bites?
Yes, I heard that. But I know, for example, if you invite your family members over for dinner, there's going to be limitations on how many people could come to your house for Thanksgiving dinner. And then you might have to wear a mask at the table. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's your own house.
But the point that I'm making here, Sam, is we got all this going on. I said last week in my sermon, I was going down the road, and there was someone who was hitchhiking. Now, a lot of times, I have to admit, I might pick up a hitchhiker. I use it as an opportunity to maybe witness and share. All of a sudden, now I'm beginning to rethink. Oh, no, that person could be infected with COVID-19, and I would bring him in my car.
Yeah, you kind of convicted me and surprised me when you said that all in one.
Yeah, well, I mean, not only that, but showing love and concern and compassion, being loving and being neighborly to your next door neighbor on your block. I have to admit, right now in the middle of COVID, I don't want to go over there. I want to do this, and it's affecting even our love to the believers in the church. We're not loving each other like we said. We're afraid, and this really has affected us culturally and our crisis. But this passage is very applicable to say, hey, you need to be showing your love for Christ right now in the middle of this crisis you're in. And so he reminds us of 10 things. So we began to look. We talked about Christian love should be seen in our compassion of one another, compassion to those who are strangers. We're to be hospitable to people. Let's be honest. This is affected hospitality. We're not being hospitable like we were. He also talked about showing compassion for those who are strangers, those who are suffering, those who are in prison, people in prison, those who are being mistreated. I mean, just think of the poor nursing homes. We have family members here that are just brokenhearted that they couldn't see their loved ones while their loved one was in a nursing home. As we know, one of our dear families lost their mother in the middle of this crisis, and we're not able to be with her or see her in the end. And it's horrible. Then we need to see Christian love in regards to it. We talked about in chastity, talked about marriage, honoring marriage above all, and the marriage bed is undefiled, and God is going to judge the sexually immoral and the adulterous. And we talked about our world right now is turned upside down, God's teaching and on the issue of the sanctity of marriage. Then we talked about Christian love seen in being content, talking about the love of money, keep ourselves free from that and content with what we have. And then it talked about we need to realize that we need to see Christian love in the fact that we can be courageous in the middle of this conflict, that Christ is with us. He never leaves us nor forsakes us. The Lord is our helper. I will not fear. And who can... So then we're going to start this week, and we're going to go down and continue some of these imperatives, and we're going to look at that Christian love should be seen in considering our leaders, in submitting to our leaders and looking to them and following their example. We'll be talking about that this week. We're going to talk about Christian love seen in being consistency in regard to the fact that Jesus Christ reminds us in this passage in verse 8 that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Christ is consistent. He's consistent in his dealing with us. We should be consistent in our dealing with one another in love and with our brothers and our family, and knowing that Christ is the same. He doesn't change. His love is unconditional. It doesn't waver. It's not up here one day and down here the other day. We'll look at that. Then we're going to look at Christian love seen in conviction. There's a warning here about being involved in false doctrine. He says, do not be led away by diverse and strange teachings, for it is good for the heart to be strengthened by grace. We're going to talk about the idea of how important it is to guard ourselves from false doctrine and to have conviction in the Word of God, conviction in the Scriptures. Then we're going to lastly look at tomorrow, and since tomorrow, Sunday that is Communion Sunday. It's beautiful. We're going to look at Christian love seen in communion. We're going to look at the principle of communion, the place of communion, and the prospect of communion in our passage when we talk about Jesus Christ as a high priest of a sacrifice. He was burned outside the camp. And what does that mean? Jesus suffered outside the camp in order to sanctify the people through his own blood. And we'll be talking about that and how it relates to communion. And so I'm looking forward to this. It's very applicable, and it's very apropos for the times in which we're living and the context and the crisis we're in. We need to go on loving like Christ loved.
Yep.
Jesus said, he says, the world's going to know that we're Christians by our love. By our love one for another and by our love for everyone. So that's where we're at there, Sam.
Yeah, it's definitely curious because, I was preaching in Jude, and Jude talks about the fact that he was going to write a letter about salvation, and God in his providence knew we would already have that letter with the book of Hebrews.
Amen.
And so it's kind of cool to, because when you think about it, and I didn't plan it this way, Pastor Tom, but Hebrews starts what we call the general epistles, and then it ends with Jude. So it's kind of like we went, there is even, you'll go from Hebrews to Jude, there's a theme. I mean, Hebrews deals with our great salvation, and then you get to James, the practical side, and then Peter and John, and then Jude, ends right before Revelation, which is a beautiful segue into Revelation, the way the Lord set it up. Jude deals with defending the faith. So it's just all that to say I'm glad we'll be able to go back to Hebrews and finish that. But how do you like this new format? A little different, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I'm always used to you being next to me over here.
Right. Well, we're social distancing is what we're doing.
Yeah, this is really social. You're like not 6 feet away. You folks, he's 60 feet away.
It's funny though that the whole COVID-19 did kind of push this technology we have. So
yeah, and also it's good when you wear a mask too. I don't have to look at your face that much.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
No, I know, and I appreciate that. But we got a big week coming up. Trunk and treat tomorrow.
Yep.
Well, first, if you're a man, we have a men's breakfast tomorrow at 9 a.m. Come on out for that. We have a good time. Breakfast pizza, right?
Yeah.
Orange juice, I think, coffee, and we have a really good study. We look at biblical manhood. And then we're going to be setting up for Trunk and Treat, which is from 4 to 7. We are not celebrating Halloween,
Right.
but we are taking this day back, dressing up as biblical characters. Of course, we're going to take the trick-or-treaters as they come, but we're going to preach the gospel. Those of you that know Dr. Doomcuff and Ranger Jim and maybe some dinosaurs, it's going to be a great time for the kids, and we do pray the Lord will be exalted. And we got a lot going on here right now, Pastor Tom. We have the Bible Institute on Tuesdays. Yeah. We've got the Word of Life for the kids on Wednesdays. Thursdays, we're alternating studies for the youth with a girls' study and a boys' study. And in fact, we're coming up on a big event where they'll all be together next Friday, November 6th from 9 to 12. We're doing our Midnight Madness, this year calling it Midnight Maskness. So be sure to let us know if you're interested in that. And then the young adults, starting that up again. And that next one will meet, we have some info on our Facebook page, November 13th at 7 p.m., the Thanksgiving theme. So we got a lot going on. Anything else you want to add to that?
No,
Anything
we're looking
I missed?
forward. Actually, it's amazing where this is. You probably watch it tomorrow. Sunday's November 1st. Can we believe we're in November? So now,
right.
Folks, we're beginning to think Thanksgiving, the holidays. We're beginning to think Christmas. And so we're excited. We're doing Operation Christmas Child, Samaritan's Purse. So those of you out there, you're looking for a great thing, start putting together a shoebox full of toys for a boy or a girl. And then I'm excited about, we support Compassion Child with our Word of Life. Anna Noel, a little girl down in Haiti. I support a personal girl from Burkina Faso, a country in Africa. Many of us support a Compassion Child. Compassion International is doing a Christmas tree ornament. We had a Christmas tree in our foyer, so we're going to be getting, I think, at least 50 ornaments with a little ornament with a picture of a child. And it's just a suggestion to take one of those, take one and maybe send them a $10 Bible, I'm looking forward to that. So there's a lot of great ways so we can reach out. Rather than take in, let's give out this Christmas.
And while we're on Christmas, I love Christmas. You want to give a little preview of, is it okay to give a preview of that yet?
Yeah, we're hoping, we're going to be doing a Christmas holiday drive-through with a ministry that I'm on the board of, and our church supports. It's called God's Rods. Those of you in our area know through Tom Roaring and the ministry, they've decorated many classic cars with gospel presentations on the car with decals or hand-painted spray paint cars that we take out to do evangelism out in Niagara Falls. They've been in our Peach Parade every year. They're in parades all around the area, and we pronounce the gospel, and we have literature. We're going to be having a drive-through, kind of a faith and hope Christmas, and I think Faith and Light we're calling it. I forget the title. But we're going to, in our driveway, we're going to have all these cars, and people will be able to drive in their car and go to each of the cars as they go by. And we're going to be using an FM radio frequency so people can tune in their radio and listen in the car when they go by as we tell the story of each of the cars and explain the gospel. And we'll have an opportunity for our church to give out stuff, to maybe some refreshment at the end. So it'll be a great gospel presentation we're hoping to do.
All right, looking forward to that and more on that later. All right, well, we'll fade out for today. As always, folks, we will see you next minute live. Thanks for tuning in.